Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AM show, Wang Law Office's question and answer show. My name is Victor Manibo.
Hi, my name is Ariel. I'm the host, also a senior paralegal at Wang Law Office. Our show is going to start every Friday at 11 a.m. EST, 8 a.m. PST.
Here at the AM show, Ariel and I try to answer all your immigration questions that you need to know. We encourage everyone to send their questions to us via any of our platforms like Line, YouTube, or email, and we'll compile it. And every week we're going to have a certain topic that I'm going to provide my legal expertise on. This week, we're going to talk about expedited removal. What is it? What can you do if you or a loved one is subject to it? It's a very kind of scary process to go through for a lot of people. So we're going to get into all of that today.
Yes. So before we start the topic, Victor, can you introduce a little bit on your own background?
Sure. For those who don't know yet, again, my name is Victor Manibo. I'm a senior attorney here at Wang Law Office. I've been with the firm for over 10 years, and I've been a lawyer for over 12 years. I graduated from Cardozo School of Law here in New York, and I'm licensed to practice both in New York and New Jersey. But because I do mostly immigration, I can practice that anywhere in the country, regardless of where the case is or where the client is, because immigration is federal. There's one set of immigration law in the entire United States. Most of what I do is immigration litigation, meaning I help non-citizens and prevent them from being removed by DHS or ICE. I also do immigration applications, meaning I help non-citizens apply for immigration status through our various immigration agencies. Aside from being a lawyer, I'm also a writer. I wrote a science fiction book called The Sleepless, which came out last year.
Yes. So Victor, back to our today's topic. I heard that if I don't have status, ICE can remove me even without sending me to the immigration court. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. In some cases, for a lot of people who don't have status or their status expired or they're just applying for status, they have to go through immigration court to get that status. And if they lose their case, then they get issued a removal order by an immigration judge. And then after that removal order, they can be removed from the country. Usually that's the normal process. But in some situations, someone can be removed right away by ICE. No immigration court proceedings, no immigration judge, no opportunity to apply for relief. So that's very serious. This process is called expedited removal, and expedite meaning to make it fast, to make something go quicker, and that's what it's about. Expedited removal is a quick process to remove someone from the country. In this episode, we're going to discuss when that happens, how that happens, and possible solutions for people who are subject to that process.
So who does this expedited removal order apply to?
First, let's talk about who it doesn't apply to, because I think that's going to be easier. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a U.S. citizen, you cannot be subject to expedited removal. ICE or DHS can try and take away your green card, or if you naturalized, they can try and denaturalize you, basically taking away your U.S. citizenship. But for that, they have to go through the court process. So if you're an LPR or a U.S. citizen, sometimes you might be traveling out of the country and then you're coming back and then you don't have ID, you don't have your green card, you don't have your passport. Usually those people get subject to expedited removal. But if you're an LPR or a U.S. citizen and you tell ICE, hey, I have this status, I'm a U.S. citizen, I am a green card holder, they cannot subject you to expedited removal automatically. They have to verify that information. They can't just issue an expedited removal or have your ID. Yeah.
Oh, like the people don't have a passport or maybe just lose the passport.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people just lose their passport while they're traveling, right? They try to enter the country, and if you have no documents, and we'll talk more about that later, if you don't have any documents, ICE can issue an expedited removal against you. But if you're a U.S. citizen and you tell them that, they have to verify that information. They'll find out through their systems that you are a U.S. citizen. Then you won't be subject to expedited removal. Another category of people who are not subject to expedited removal are refugees and asylum seekers. These are people who are fleeing persecution in their home country because of their religion or their race or their sex or some protected category. If a person comes into the United States and tells ICE, I'm here as a refugee or I'm seeking asylum, ICE cannot subject them to expedited removal. They can't just kick them out of the country right away. They must give these people the opportunity to seek asylee status, and they will be subject to a different kind of process. We've talked about in a previous episode about asylum interviews, the credible fear process. That's a separate process. It's not the expedited removal process. So if you are an asylum seeker and you're entering the country, if you tell them you're seeking asylum, they're not going to expedite your removal. They're going to put you through the asylum process.
So back to our question, who does it apply to?
Expedited removal usually applies to any foreign national who arrives at the border or a port of entry without proper documents. Either they don't have documents at all, no passport, no visa, no nothing, or they have a passport or a visa that is fake or fraudulent. We've talked about this before. It's fairly common, and people should not do this, but people do try to do this. And if ICE finds out that you entered or you're trying to enter the border or through the airport with no documents or fake documents, invalid documents, they can just try to remove you through the expedited removal process, meaning just issue an order, pick you up, and kick you out of the country. That's basically what happens, right? The other category that happens to are people who have no status, who are already in the United States, not at the border, right? Not at the border, not at the airport. They're already in the United States, but they're within 100 miles of the border. So still by the border. It's not close to the border because 100 miles is a long distance, right? But if you're within that zone and you've been in the country less than 14 days, and then ICE somehow picks you up or encounters you, maybe at a checkpoint, maybe, you're just unlucky, you got through and somehow ICE found you within 14 days of entering the country and you have no documents and you're within 100 miles of the border, ICE can subject you to expedited removal, meaning, detain you and then kick you out of the country. No immigration court, no immigration judge, no review, just you're gone.
I also heard there is some sort of people who entering with the B visa, but their visa got revoked at the border and they just got sent back home.
Sometimes that happens. We have people who have multiple entry tourist visas, right? And maybe they've come to the US before, they left, they're trying to come back. And then at the border, CBP says, oh, your visa is revoked for some reason. They could subject you to expedited removal, maybe because your visa is not valid for some reason or because it's been revoked because of some reason like fraud. They can subject you to expedited removal, or they can let you just turn around and leave. And we'll get into that later, where some people just voluntarily leave.
So what happens if an ICE officer say that I will have to go through the expedited removal?
Generally, this process consists of an ICE officer or CBP officer interviewing you, asking you who you are, looking at your documents, or seeing that you don't have any documents, or seeing that you have fake documents. And then they're going to say, okay, we're going to subject you to expedited removal. While they're trying to figure that out, you will be detained. And then he will consult with a supervisor. He will check, the system. They have databases about people who have been into the country, and maybe you have some history. Maybe you've been here before, and if you haven't, then you're not going to show up in the system. But basically, they're going to try and do some sort of background check on you. And if they find that you really don't have any valid documents, you're entering through the border, but you have no documents, they can subject you to expedited removal. And if the supervisor says, yes, this person should be expedited removal, then they issue what's called an expedited removal order, which authorizes them to put you on a plane back to your home country, to kick you out of the country. So if you're at the border, they're not going to let you pass the border, right? If you were encountered within the United States, like I was saying earlier, that whole 100-mile zone, right? If you were apprehended there, they're going to pick you up, they're going to detain you, and then they're going to hold you. And when the expedited removal order is issued, again, they're going to put you on a plane. They're going to kick you out of the country. So that's what happens.
So is ICE going to detain me?
Yes. And like I said, they do this very quickly, right? So as soon as they determine, oh, this person is for expedited removal, they're going to pick you up, they're going to detain you, they're going to put you in custody while they're trying to decide if they're going to issue the order, and that's going to take, a matter of hours. And then when they issue the expedited removal, then they're going to get you out of the country. That entire time, you are going to be in ICE detention. This is required under the law. It's mandatory detention for expedited removal. There are some exceptions. If you are an unaccompanied minor, meaning you are a minor who has no adult with you, traveling with you, or if you have a serious medical condition, they are not going to put you in detention that entire time. But again, this is only for a short time, because the point of expedited removal is to get you out of the country as quickly as possible.
Like a few days only?
A few days, maybe sometimes even less than a day, maybe 1 day.
Wow.
If ICE decides, however, that you're not subject to expedited removal and that you should be sent to asylum or immigration court proceedings, then ICE can parole you. They can release you from custody and say, okay, you're temporarily allowed to be in the United States while we're waiting for your immigration court date.
So you mentioned something earlier. What if I am applying for asylum at the border? Does it mean the ICE officer cannot do the expedited removal?
Right, they cannot. What happens a lot of the time is people who are refugees or asylees, they maybe go through the border or they go through the airport and they don't have valid documents. They don't have a passport or a visa. And these, like I was saying earlier, these are the people that are subject to expedited removal. But if somebody says, hi, I'm here in the United States because I want to seek asylum, I'm being persecuted in my home country and I want asylum in the United States, ICE is required to subject you to asylum proceedings and not expedited proceedings. So it's a different track that you're going to. Asylum proceedings mean you're going to talk to an asylum officer who is going to screen you if you are eligible for asylum. They're going to go through the credible fear interview. And then if you are found to have credible fear, they're going to refer your case to an immigration judge. So you can go to immigration court and an immigration judge can decide your case. We've had an episode about this on the AM show in the past. If you have questions about the asylum process, you can go watch that. But basically, if you are an asylum seeker and DHS or ICE says, oh, you don't have anything, or you have a fake passport, we're going to expedite removal, you tell them, I'm seeking asylum, then they have to honor that. They have to send you through asylum proceedings.
So what should I do if the ICE officer say that I will have to go through that expedited removal?
So the first thing you do is you call a lawyer. Anytime you get an encounter with law enforcement or with ICE, it's best to have access to a lawyer. It might be difficult if you're in expedited removal because these things go fast and they're not under any obligation to provide you with a lawyer. So if you have the opportunity, call a lawyer, let a relative know that this is what's happening and, I need help. And hopefully a lawyer can get there in time before ICE issues an order and kicks you out of the country. Because if you have a lawyer there, they can talk to ICE and challenge what ICE is doing. They can say, hey, why are you subjecting my client to expedited removal? Maybe you have a green card already. Maybe you're an asylum seeker. Maybe you're someone who is not supposed to be subject to expedited removal. A lawyer can raise that to ICE and argue that with ICE if you're not subject to expedited removal.
Yes, the ICE officer, they're still human. They're going to make mistakes. So the lawyer can argue.
Yeah, absolutely. So you might not be, eligible. You might not be subject to expedited removal. A lawyer is the one who's in the best position to argue that, especially for a lot of people, they don't know immigration law, or they can't even communicate with the ICE officer. So if you have access to someone who can get you a lawyer, if you have a direct line to a lawyer, that's the first thing that you should do. Also, try and stay silent. Don't provide ICE with any information or any documents. You don't have to sign any documents. You don't have to sign anything. Whether you understand the document or not, you're not supposed to, you're not forced to give any information or sign any document. I think the only best way, or the best thing that you can tell DHS is, I'm a green card holder, or I'm a U.S. citizen, or I'm an asylum seeker, so that they know not to put you through expedited removal. But as much as possible, don't give them any information. You have the right to remain silent. That applies to everyone, not just U.S. citizens, but even non-citizens. And try to get a lawyer as soon as an ICE officer says, we're going to go through expedited removal with you.
So can I tell the ICE officer that I don't want to enter anymore and just go back to my home country?
Yes, this is possible. And it's called withdrawing your application for admission. As I was saying earlier, expedited removal happens when someone is trying to enter the country with no documents or fraudulent documents, or they're apprehended near the border, right? So let's say someone is trying to enter the United States through an airport. They are using a fake passport. ICE is going to say, okay, if this is fake, we're going to subject you to expedited removal. And the person doesn't say that they're seeking asylum, right? So they're going to be subject to expedited removal. That person can say, actually, you know what? No, I am withdrawing my application for admission. I'm not going to try and enter this country anymore. I just want to go back. I'm going to turn around and ride the plane back to my home country. That is allowed. Voluntary withdrawal is allowed at this point. You can withdraw your application for admission. You're not trying to be admitted into the country anymore. And ICE says, under the law, they're supposed to allow you to do that. If you do that, you won't get in, but you also won't risk getting an expedited order. You will avoid such an order. That doesn't mean that there's no record of it, especially if you tried to enter with a fraudulent document. ICE will have a record of that encounter, and they will have a record of your information, your biometrics information. And if you try and enter the next time in the future, that encounter is going to show up, and that might jeopardize your opportunity or your chances of being able to enter even legally.
So what if I already get that expedited removal? Can I appeal it?
No, unfortunately, if you get an expedited removal order, there's no appeal. You can't go to an immigration judge, like I said, because this is supposed to be fast, right? And so you can't go to immigration court. You also cannot go to the Board of Immigration Appeals. That's usually the path for a removal order, and there is no such path for an expedited removal order, because the whole point of this process is to make it quick and to ease the burdens in our immigration court system, right? So as much as possible, what is best to do, because you can't appeal it, is to try and fight it as early on. Like I said earlier, try and make sure you have a lawyer who can argue with the ICE officer to get you out of expedited removal, so that the order doesn't come down in the first place. But if the order comes down, even though you don't have an appeal, one option is to file a federal case called a habeas corpus case, or going into habeas corpus proceedings in federal district court to challenge your placement in detention, to challenge your placement in expedited removal proceedings. However, this is a federal district court case. It is a limited kind of review. Not everyone can do this. Not every lawyer can do this. And not everyone might have the access or opportunity to do it because these things go fast, because you're in detention that entire time. You might not have money, or you might not want to do it because you're in detention while this case is proceeding. But it is an option. It is a way to get the federal court involved and have them look at this expedited order and say, hey, this is wrong. You should release this person. So, it's not totally no way. There is a way. It's called habeas. And that's typically the only option. A good lawyer can file this case if they're admitted to a federal district court where that has jurisdiction over you and your case. So that really is the only way to review an expedited order.
And you need to find a lawyer with experience on this. And
absolutely. Because it's not easy. It's very difficult. We've had these cases, and district court cases generally are also very difficult.
So if I have an expedited removal, can I try and come back after?
So let's say you get an expedited order and you can't appeal it, and you don't do habeas corpus, or you lose your habeas case and you're just removed from the country, right? Can you try and come back? Well, hopefully, if you're trying to come back, you do have valid documentation when you try and come back, right? You have a valid passport, valid visa. But if you got an expedited removal order, you are barred from re-entering the United States for 5 years after you get that order and are removed. So 5 years. Don't even try. There are some exceptions to this. There are some waivers to this, but typically it's a 5-year period. If you try to re-enter without documentation again, and this is something that some people do, they just want to try. They think, I just got unlucky because I got picked up at the border at the airport. I'm going to try again. And this time I'm not going to get caught. If you try and re-enter and you get caught again, that is going to be a lifetime permanent bar. They're going to kick you out of the country and you will have no opportunity to come back permanently. Again, for both the 5 years and the permanent bar, there are some exceptions. There might be some waivers available, but they're very difficult and they're very limited. That's beyond the scope of this episode, but there are severe penalties for this. So don't try and re-enter illegally,
Yes. So expedited removal is a quick and scale process, as Victor just mentioned, and it requires quick and informed action by you, your relative, and ask your lawyer if
right. I mean, it like you were saying, it's quick, it's scary, and you need to be quick. Also, you need to have the right information to be able to get out of it if you're eligible to get out of it.
Yes, if you or someone is being held for expedited removal, call us.
Right, and we've handled these cases before. We know the best way for every particular situation.
And if you have more questions, please feel free to leave your question with any of our platforms.
And aside from leaving questions, you can also consult with us. Everything that I've said during this episode is based on my legal experience. They're just my legal opinion. They're not legal advice. They're not advice particular to any case, and it's not legal representation. Watching this YouTube show doesn't mean that we become your lawyers. However, if you want us to represent you, or if you want legal advice about your case or a relative's case, you can reach out to us via any of our platforms like Line or YouTube or email.
Yes, and you can continue follow us on YouTube. We will be back again next week with another show, Friday, 11 a.m. EST, 8 a.m. PST. See you then.
Till next week. Bye.